The story begins with a young girl, Ibarakawa Kurisu, praying in a church. She is a devoted sister who lives by the laws of God. With calm sincerity, she prays for everyone in the world, wishing them happiness and fulfillment. Afterward, she steps outside and begins sweeping the church grounds. She wonders if anyone out there prays for her happiness, and imagines meeting such a person one day. Perhaps a kind angel is watching over her. Just as she thinks that, a shadow passes above, and a voice calls out to her. Kurisu looks up, her eyes sparkling with hope, believing an angel has descended. But her joy quickly turns to shock when she sees a boy with dark, bat-like wings and curved horns descending from the sky. The boy introduces himself as Claude Mephistopheles and claims he has come to ensure her happiness. Startled, she raises her pendant and shouts for the demon to leave. The boy screams in pain and bows nervously, pleading for her to wait. From that moment, the happiness of Kurisu's life connects with not God or an angel, but a demon. Frightened and confused, she demands to know why he has come so suddenly and if he is truly a demon. She strikes him with her broom in panic. He admits his unannounced arrival must have startled her, and that he should have called first. Kurisu accuses him of trying to tempt her away from God. The demon calmly shakes his head, assuring her that it is not his purpose. Bowing deeply, he explains that he has come for a completely different reason. Suddenly, the boy lifts his index finger, a strange glow enveloping him as he begins to cast a spell. Kurisu's eyes widen in disbelief, her heart pounding as the air trembles. Then a deafening boom shakes the ground. When the dust clears, he steps forward calmly and offers her a business card. She stares at it, torn between awe and exasperation, wondering why he went through all that trouble to summon a business card instead of just carrying one like a normal person. The demon apologizes politely that his robe doesn't have any pockets. Kurisu sighs in frustration. Checking the card, she realizes it's an actual demon's business contract card, and even his address is on the card. The demon nods and starts to explain, saying that there's a reason for his arrival. The flying trouble explains that everything started the night before. Under heavy rain and thunder, a weak older man pleads with him to grant his daughter happiness. He confesses that 15 years ago he had a daughter with his mistress. But due to an inheritance dispute, he had to keep her a secret and entrust her to someone else. Despite trying many ways to find her, he never succeeded. With little time left in his life, he declares that sacrificing his soul for her happiness would be worth it. The demon boy listens in silence, then forms the contract, understanding that his goal is to find the man's daughter and ensure her happiness. He hands over the document, telling him to sign and press his fingerprint, joking not to use a seal. The older man chuckles at how modern the demon sounds. Now, Kurisu understands. Turning toward the church, she remembers how the sisters told her she'd been abandoned at the doors of St. Christina Church as a baby. Looking back at the demon, she scoffs, questioning how someone like him could possibly bring happiness to a sister. He admits it's the first case of its kind, a demon bound to protect a nun. Though shocked at first, he vows to fulfill the contract no matter the cost, declaring he won't bring shame to his great ancestor Mephistopheles, even if it means his life. Kurisu studies him, finding his sincerity unsettling for a demon. Despite their opposing faiths, he swears never to harm her. And if he ever breaks that vow, she has his permission to exorcise him. Placing his tattooed hand on his chest, he swears to bring her happiness no matter what. Kurisu blushes and hides her face, scolding herself for feeling flustered. She panics, thinking his words almost sounded like a proposal and that she might be weak to men after all. Feeling conflicted, she asks him to leave. The demon looks shocked and confused, wondering why. He suddenly recalls a human way to express such feelings, something said to make women happy. Before Kurisu can stop him, he transforms into a dashing prince in a shining coat, kneels with a huge bouquet, and declares his vow to make her happy and stay by her side. Kurisu freezes, blushing furiously, and shouts in embarrassment, swinging her pendant again. The demon yells in pain, admitting he truly is a demon as he stumbles back. The scene shifts to the next day when the girl picks up her phone. The demon doesn't give up and calls her to ask if he can visit around 3 p.m. Kurisu calls him a fool and tells him that she cannot accept his offer. Claude asks if it is because he's a demon, and she nods. But she also knows deep down it's because his innocence always makes her heart race, something she blames on her weakness toward men. The demon insists that he wants to see her and promises to make her happy no matter what, saying he will never give up. In the afternoon, Claude visits with a gift. Kurisu blushes when he greets her politely. He gives her a box of detergent as a gift to express his gratitude, making her question if he works at a newspaper stand, though she still thanks him. The magic friend then mentions he also brought first-class Matsusaka beef, but decided not to give it because it would go against her vow of poverty as a sister. Kurisu smiles at his thoughtfulness and thanks him. Getting back to the topic, the demon says the goal of the contract is to make sure she lives a happy life. He snaps his fingers and the contract appears before them. He explains that happiness differs for everyone. It could mean dreams, wealth, fame, returning to childhood, or revenge, but she isn't interested in any of those. Sir Annoying agrees, saying what maidens her age usually desire is romance. Kurisu twitches in surprise and reminds him that she's a sister, someone who has given up worldly desires like romance. Claude realizes this will be a difficult task, but Kurisu tells him just to leave. Instead of giving up, he clenches his wrist and declares that he's fired up now. Kurisu tells him to give up and questions why demons aren't lazy like they're supposed to be. Suddenly, he snaps his fingers and summons a magic item called Desire Camera with special witch-like claws, a big, strange eye, and small wings. Kurisu stares at the camera in disbelief, realizing why it's called the Desire Camera. The disaster demon explains that the camera shows a person's deepest desire when their photo is taken. To prove it, he takes a picture of a nearby cat, and the image shows the cat happily eating a giant fish. Kurisu nervously thinks that her heart is already a mess because of him, and if the camera shows her real desires, it might print something embarrassing. She decides this camera is too dangerous for her. Before she can protest, the demon lifts the camera and takes her picture. She flinches at the sound of the click, awkwardly blurting that her skin feels dry today, so that they may take the photo another time. Trying to sound casual, she laughs nervously, but Claude just moves closer, examining her skin seriously. Kurisu freezes at his closeness. He calmly tells her that her skin looks fine and that she looks beautiful anyway. Her face turns red as he snaps another picture. When the photo develops, the demon curiously asks what it shows, but Kurisu snatches it before he can see. She prays silently, begging the universe for something pure and innocent. Her heart stops when she sees the picture. She's wearing a wedding dress, holding a bouquet. She panics, realizing this image completely exposes her hidden feelings. Terrified he'll find out, she quickly rips the photo to pieces. The demon looks shocked and suggests taking another one. Kurisu's panic doubles. Without hesitation, she punches the camera so hard that it shatters, and he crashes to the ground like a wounded penguin. Sister Punch echoes loudly. Trying to cover her embarrassment, she proudly declares she saw a world without hunger, war, or pain in the photo, a world full of peace and love. She smiles like a saint, pretending her only desire is world peace. The disaster demon, still dazed, stares in disbelief and says that only God could grant such a wish. He mutters that the camera can't capture something beyond a demon's power, then suspiciously asks if she's lying. Kurisu, red-faced and furious, punches him again, shouting that she's not lying. Clearly, the peaceful resolution is nowhere to be found. The following morning, Kurisu reminds herself she only wants to stay pure. After all, the Desire camera showed something completely unexpected. She still blames Claude-san and insists it was all a misunderstanding. There's no way she'd ever dream of becoming a bride. What she truly wants is to be an admirable sister like her role model, Julia Onesama, the kind and loving nun who raised her. As she looks at Julia's photos, lost in thought, a shadow suddenly appears at her window. Outside, the demon floats with his wings spread and an annoyingly smug expression. He explains that after seeing the no demons beyond this point sign, he decided to fly over it. Kurisu shouts that flying is also against the rules, but he just stays there, posing dramatically in the air. Irritated, she points at him and tells him to become a sister. He looks puzzled until she explains that only she and Julia Sama live in the church, but with her away on a trip, it's been lonely. She admits almost shyly that she just wants some company, even from an annoying demon. Smirking to herself, she's sure he won't be able to pull it off and will regret making their contract. Before she can relish the thought, he snaps his fingers and instantly transforms into a breathtakingly beautiful nun, with a perfect figure. Kurisu nearly falls over, stunned, while he smiles serenely, claiming he's now a proper sister. Kurisu glares at him for having no pride as a male demon. He proudly gestures at himself, declaring he's given it his all. Kurisu turns red and screams. She sighs as if she already knew something like this would happen. She tells him that just changing his looks doesn't count. If he's going to be a sister, then he has to pray in the church too. Kurisu smirks to herself. No way a demon could ever exercise itself. Suddenly, the fake sister agrees and starts heading toward the church. He cheerfully says they should go pray, leaving Kurisu wide-eyed in disbelief. She stammers, wondering if that's even allowed, while he proudly says that as a superior demon, he can handle it. With a big grin and zero hesitation, he throws open the church doors dramatically and shouts, "Here we go," like he's about to enter a concert instead of a sacred place. As soon as he opens the church doors, a bright light flashes and an intense holy light blows toward him, almost knocking him down. The demon groans in pain as the power tears through his clothes, leaving his sister outfit ripped and messy. Kurisu shouts his name in worry, but he tries to act tough and says he's fine, even though he clearly looks half dead. He admits the church's holy power is extreme, but insists he hasn't lost yet. Trying to stay brave, he starts to pray, but instead of praying to God, he calls out to Lucifer. Kurisu yells at him that it's the wrong chant, but before he can stop, more light bursts from the church and burns him again. She tells him he's just made them angry, but he still doesn't give up. Even while burning, he prays again, this time to the real God, asking for Kurisu-sama to be blessed and happy for life. Kurisu feels touched seeing him think of her, even in pain. Then the holy fire slowly fades away. She notices that the light has stopped hurting him. The poor demon, covered in burns and looking exhausted, falls to the ground and changes back to his original appearance. At the church gate, a sister stands quietly, reflecting on how long it's been. Smiling softly, she wonders how Kurisu-chan is doing, until her expression freezes at the sight of a sign. Inside, Kurisu sits beside the injured demon. He finally realizes she tried everything just to make him give up. Looking down sadly, she admits that a sister and a demon can never be together. She only wanted him to stop pursuing the contract. The demon smiles gently, telling her she's already an admirable sister in his eyes, yet he won't give up while he still draws breath. Kurisu sighs, knowing it's useless to argue. He never listens. Remembering how he prayed for her despite his pain, she can't help but see his sincerity. When he asks if he can keep visiting her, she hesitates for a moment, then nods softly. Claude beams with joy and thanks her with full energy. Kurisu quickly adds that it doesn't mean she approves of him yet. Suddenly, the demon jumps up, fired up with excitement, shouting that her kindness has given him new strength, only to wobble and fall forward in dizziness. Kurisu panics, shouting to ask if he's okay, but before she can react, Julia Onisama bursts through the door, announcing her return. She freezes at the sight of Kurisu on the floor with the demon collapsed on top of her. Kurisu's face flushes crimson as Julia gives her a stern look and says they need to talk. Flustered, Kurisu shoves Claude aside and waves her hands frantically, insisting it's all a misunderstanding. Julia bursts out in anger, unable to believe that Kurisu brought a man home while she was away. Kurisu panics, frantically trying to explain, begging the unconscious Claude to say something as he lies motionless on the floor. Julia's expression darkens as she wonders if they were being rough, then sighs that it's fine. Being intimate with someone you like is still a kind of love. Kurisu is left speechless, trying to protest that Claude isn't even the man she likes. Julia misunderstands even further, assuming Kurisu did it with a man she doesn't like just for pleasure. Tapping a stick ominously against her palm, she declares it unforgivable. Trembling, Kurisu barely has time to react before Julia smacks her, calling it the worst situation possible. Kurisu yelps in pain, nearly in tears. After much chaos, Kurisu finally explains everything, and Julia apologizes for jumping to conclusions. When Claude wakes, he looks guilty and apologizes that her pain was his fault, offering to heal her with magic. Kurisu reluctantly turns around as he places his hands near her and mends the injury with a soft, glowing light. Later, the two stand before Julia, who admits that a demon forming a contract to ensure a sister's happiness isn't exactly proper, but then her face softens. She says that if anything, it's proof of how precious love is, and that nothing makes her happier than seeing people show love for one another. Claude whispers that Julia sounds a little strange. After that, he bows and thanks Julia for accepting him and promises to repay her kindness. Julia calls him a good kid and tells him to take care of Kurisu. They shake hands, and her strong holy power burns him again, making him collapse. Kurisu yells at him, and Claude weakly explains that Julia's holy power is so strong, he almost passed out just from touching her. Kurisu wonders why he's fine when she touches him, and Claude calmly answers that if Julia's holy power is 100, Kurisu's is about 25. She explodes in anger at the insult and leaves him. He falls backward on the ground. In contrast, she shouts at him for calling her admirable earlier, but still giving her a score of 25. Julia apologizes to the miserable demon and asks what would make him feel better. Claude pitifully says that some sweets would help, so they bring out the famous mochi from Mi Prefecture. The moment he eats it, he cheers that it tastes fantastic, just as expected from human sweets. While Julia proudly explains it's a souvenir from her business trip, he happily announces that sugar is the fuel for demon magic and that he feels fully recovered. When Claude tries to eat the last mochi, Kurisu notices sadly. Julia stops him, explaining it's actually Kurisu's favorite sweet, leaving her disappointed. Panicking, Claude spits out the half-eaten mochi and nervously offers it to her, but Kurisu rejects it in disgust. Determined not to upset her, he snaps his fingers and uses the time leap spray, rewinding the mochi 10 seconds to its untouched state. Kurisu watches in shock as Julia urges her to eat it, reminding her she can't disobey her Onisama. Reluctantly, she takes it, telling herself it's just fresh mochi, not an indirect kiss. As she eats, Claude and Julia cheer like it's a wholesome moment. Julia declares it lovely to see a sister and demon share food, and orders Kurisu to get along with him. But she refuses. Claude then reveals the spray's effect lasts only 1 minute, meaning the mochi in her stomach will revert. Furious, Kurisu demands a magic item to empty her stomach, but he has none. Julia tries to calm her, urging her to get along with him, while Kurisu screams that it's impossible, especially after an indirect kiss that didn't even make her heart flutter. After the chaos settles, the demon thanks Julia for the mochi and feels fully recovered. But Kurisu hands him his cape and insists he should leave because the church bans men anyway. Julia casually says she wants to talk to Claude a little longer, which makes Kurisu flustered and confused. The demon politely declines, saying he will leave because he always puts Kurisu's feelings first. She shyly twirls her hair at his words. Julia opens her arms to hug the naughty demon, but he is terrified and runs to hide behind Kurisu, like a scared cat. She scolds him for giving up instantly and reminds him that he claimed he would prioritize her. He apologizes and explains that his body reacts on its own because Julia is basically a walking deadly weapon, poison, and Armageddon to him. She finds that rude and checks if things are okay before warning him not to cause more trouble, which he quickly agrees to. Julia then brings out Christian's childhood photo album and asks Claude if he wants to see that. Kurisu shouts at her that choosing the album is the most dangerous thing she could pick. The cutie devil becomes thrilled at the precious information, thinking that learning her childhood patterns might help him figure out how to make her happy. Kurisu hides her face in a cushion as Julia shows a baby font, then a picture of little Chris standing on her own, which embarrasses her, but she still feels tolerable. But when Julia shows a photo of Kurisu after she wet her bed, she screams and tries to destroy it. Claude stops her because he considers it precious data that could help him make her happier, even though no one understands how that logic works. Julia then says the real hint might come from another photo and reveals a wedding picture of a beautiful couple. The demon gets curious while Julia explains that about 10 years ago, a couple held their wedding in the church, and she helped out back then. Julia remembers how, back then, little Kurisu became utterly obsessed with the bride's beauty and the couple's love, even throwing flowers at them in excitement. The bride stands there in a shining white gown with beautiful jewelry. Kurisu stares at her wide-eyed, calling her so pretty. The bride kindly tells her that one day she will meet someone wonderful too, and those words hit young Kurisu straight in the heart. She sees how happy the bride looks and immediately decides she wants to become a bride when she grows up. Kurisu is later told that sisters cannot get married, and that news sends her into a dramatic, rebellious phase. Kurisu angrily complains about Julia bringing it up. It's normal for little girls to love shiny dresses and princess-like outfits, insisting it was only a simple dream. Embarrassed, Kurisu rushes off to make tea to escape the conversation. Julia then speaks to Claude and explains that sisters choose this life on their own. But Kurisu is different, and as long as she grows into someone who truly cares about others, any path she chooses will be wonderful. She asks Claude to take care of Christian, and he agrees. Julia suddenly recalls another photo and shows Claude a small torn piece she found in the yard. He reacts immediately, but before he can explain, Kurisu calls from the kitchen about the tea, growing suspicious as she notices them whispering. Claude quietly reveals it's the Desire Camera, a tool that exposes hidden desires. As Kurisu approaches, panic sets in. She's already destroyed the original photo, but is shocked to see a time leap spray that helped piece things together. Julia gently suggests Kurisu might still secretly wish to become a bride. Flushed with embarrassment, she loudly denies it, insisting she only wants to become an admirable sister. Kurisu starts the day in full teacher mode, telling the kindergarten kids to play nicely. Within minutes, two fight over a ball and she yells for them to stop, only to spot another trying to climb the fence. She rushes over, sighing that she only came for volunteer service. Still, since she's here, she wants to guide them properly, though taking care of kids is exhausting. Then a child shouts, "Mr. Demon is flying!" Kurisu turns and freezes. Claude is floating with his wings spread, several kids hanging onto him as he cheerfully tells them to hold on tight. Kurisu screams at him for doing something dangerous, as regretting ever bringing him just because Julia Onisama had a neighborhood meeting. Meanwhile, Claude is determined to support her today, even worrying if he might be a bad influence on the children. The kids immediately gather around him, admiring how cool he is. Kurisu gets irritated because he is somehow more popular than her. Then a little girl innocently asks Chris-san if she and Mr. Demon are lovers, making her panic and deny it, while another girl asks what a lover is. The first child confidently explains it as people who are all lovey-dovey. Kurisu snaps at them for knowing things too early. Claude proudly squats down and adds that adults in relationships also have sex. As he says this, Kurisu punches him hard on the head for teaching unnecessary things to little kids. A teacher then tells her to take the children to the playroom. As they settle in the playroom, Claude announces they will build with blocks and confidently starts constructing a huge tower. Kurisu watches in surprise, relieved that he's surprisingly good with kids. When the tower is done, Claude proudly declares it the Tower of Babel from the Old Testament. The troublemaker explains that humans once tried to reach the sky to annoy God, and urges the kids to build tall towers to do the same. Kurisu screams at him for teaching nonsense, warning the children that building the Tower of Babel is forbidden, while Claude only looks confused and asks why. When a child asks him to teach them to draw, Claude happily agrees, then draws a complex magic summoning circle, explaining it's used to call a demon when someone is in trouble. Horrified, Kurisu snatches the paper and tears it apart, scolding him for filling the children's heads with demonic ideas. Flustered, Claude apologizes, admitting he doesn't really understand human childcare. Kurisu is exhausted and yells that his support is actually making her job even harder. When it's time for the nap break, the demon confidently gathers blankets and hands them to the children, thinking they can finally rest for some time. But Kurisu already knows this is the most tiring part because none of the kids ever wants to sleep. As expected, the children instantly start shouting and running around, and the demon freezes in shock. He insists that she should leave it to him this time, while she doubts him and assumes he will just cause more trouble. He bows, determined to be helpful, and Kurisu reluctantly agrees. The demon then summons a magical item called the Sleeping Fairy Sheep, something parents in the demon world use to make their kids sleep. Kurisu finds it cute as he explains that anyone who touches the soft, glowing cotton the fairy spreads will fall asleep immediately. Kurisu starts to relax and enjoys how easy everything suddenly feels, even though she wonders if it's a bit wrong to use such magic. She happily thanks him, but then notices the demon is already leaning forward and snoozing because he accidentally touched the cotton too. He leans right onto her, and she panics, trying to wake him up, but she has no strength left. She tries to push him off, but her arms feel weak as she also touches the cotton. Sleepiness overwhelms her, and she slowly gives in, thinking she is just too tired. After some time, the children wake them up, calling for Mr. Demon and Miss Chris. She opens her eyes and immediately hears the students whispering that sisters shouldn't do this, and that she and the demon must be lovers. Confused, she looks down and realizes the demon is hugging her tightly like they're cuddling. The teacher arrives, happy that Kurisu came to help, but also lightly scolds her for being a bad influence by doing this in front of the children. Kurisu is mortified, while the teacher reminds her that maybe this kind of thing can wait until she goes home, leaving our sister completely shocked. Kurisu feels disheartened, thinking how she came to the kindergarten as a volunteer yet still fails to guide the children because of Claude. Praying for strength before he becomes a bad influence, she gathers the kids and asks them to write their dreams, what kind of people they want to be. On her own chart, she writes an admirable sister. Claude writes his too, to make Chris-sama happy. The children start whispering about marriage and lovers, making Kurisu yell at him to stop. As the children finish their dream charts, Kurisu reads them. Football player, astronaut, idol, magical girl, and smiles at their enthusiasm. Then Claude suddenly declares he will use magic. Kurisu panics, but he explains he just wants to let everyone experience their dreams. Before she can stop him, he casts a spell and turns a boy into an astronaut. The children cheer and line up excitedly for their turns. Watching from the side, she sighs but can't help noticing how well he handles them and how happy they are. A girl runs up, proudly showing off her magical girl form, and Kurisu smiles. Then she notices a small girl sitting alone with a sad face. Kurisu kneels beside her and gently asks what's wrong. The girl says she doesn't know what she wants to be and asks why Kurisu wants to become an admirable sister. She pauses, thinking back to her past. She admits she used to be a troublemaker who caused headaches for the church sisters. In her first year of middle school, she volunteered at a kindergarten and realized how hard it was to care for children. Understanding how much the sisters struggled, her heart filled with gratitude. From that day, she decided to be a good kid. She tells the girl that if she can become an admirable sister, then everyone around her will be happy too. She smiles gently at the girl and tells her to write something that will make the people around her happy for now. The girl nods softly. Kurisu feels relieved and thinks she finally managed to guide at least one child onto the right path today. She watches the class settle when a boy suddenly asks Claude to turn him into a demon. He agrees without thinking, and Kurisu panics as he lifts his hand to snap his fingers. She rushes forward to stop him, but she slips into the spot where the boy stands. She ends up transformed into a demon. The kids stare and chatter nonstop while she tries to cover herself with her hands. They remind her she wants to become an admirable sister, and one even comments about her figure. Claude calmly tries to explain that even wearing revealing clothes is fine if someone is pure inside, which only makes her explode. She screams at him to turn her back and punches him hard in the face. He undoes the magic and everyone returns to normal. The children become upset and accuse her of ruining their fun. She shouts that all magic must be banned. The school day ends and parents arrive. Kurisu feels completely drained and sighs that she still fails to guide the children toward the right path. Claude stands beside her wearing a sign that says "No Magic" and apologizes miserably. A beautiful mother arrives, surprised to see Chris-chan volunteering. The woman notices Claude and calls him funny-looking. Her child, Remy, casually introduces him as Miss Chris's lover, and Claude politely states he is a demon. The mother becomes excited and happily tells Kurisu that she has finally found someone wonderful. Kurisu tries to deny it and explains that nothing like that is happening. Claude recognizes the woman as the bride from the old album. Little Remy asks her mother if she will be happy if she becomes a good kid, and the mother replies she certainly will. Remy announces she will become a good kid from now on, and her mom is confused but delighted. Claude tells Kurisu that Remy seems well-guided. He bows deeply and apologizes for all the trouble, saying he still fails to help her. He promises to make her happy next time. Kurisu blushes and quietly says she knows. The mother calls out again, asking Chris-chan to invite her to the wedding. She shouts that it is not like that at all. Inside, she admits that Claude keeps causing trouble, and it annoys her more because despite being a demon, he is actually good inside. She knows she cannot hate him, and that thought frustrates her even more. Kurisu begins her new school term as a high schooler. During the opening ceremony, the headmaster jokes about his shiny bald head and wishes everyone a smooth, fulfilling school life. Kurisu recalls telling Claude yesterday that only students can enter the school, so he cannot come. The trouble nugget looked pitiful, but she's relieved. Finally, a peaceful day. In class, she sits alone while others chat. She thinks about how calm it feels without demons, and reminds herself to face everything with a pure heart. She remembers standing out as the sister in her first year, being left out of karaoke parties, and quietly accepting that she has no friends. Still, a quiet school life is better than being dragged into chaos by a big baby demon. Their homeroom teacher, Kano, arrives and introduces herself as their homeroom teacher, 30, single for 6 years, and constantly nagged by her mother about marriage. Flustered, she urges everyone to focus on studies, saying the school allows communication between boys and girls, but forbids romance. Then she points at Ibarakawa as an example to follow, leaving the class staring at her as if she had caused the rule. The headmaster suddenly bursts in, bantering with Kano about his real hair, before announcing a transfer student placed in her class. Kurisu immediately senses danger. The new student is Mephisto. A loud burst of energy fills the room as Claude appears, smiling politely. The teacher screams while the class freezes, whispering that he looks like trouble. Trying to calm them, Claude offers demon ohagi, sweets from the demon world, claiming even Lucifer supports them. A box of treats materializes, and the class instantly softens, calling him a nice guy. Then he cheerfully greets Kurisu like an old friend. She freezes, then drags him out of the classroom. The headmaster asks if they know each other. Outside, Kurisu furiously demands why he's here. Claude innocently explains that she said only students can enter, so he became one. When it didn't work at first, he discussed it with the headmaster and used a magical implant to enroll. Kurisu screams the headmaster's name in outrage. Kono-sensei rushes out, asking what's going on. Claude introduces himself as the man who will make Chris-sama happy, leaving her mortified. From the windows, curious students lean out, shouting questions. Are they dating? What's their relationship? As Kurisu panics, realizing her peaceful school life is already over. The teacher suddenly yells that Kurisu found a man and calls her a traitor. Kurisu tries to explain, but the teacher attacks her with a student handbook. Claude steps in front of her and stops the book with his hand, saying he will never allow anything that harms Kurisu and asks the teacher to understand. He checks on Chris-sama and she says she is fine, while the teacher complains that Kurisu is showing off. The headmaster watches and calls it youth, and the students praise the thrifted hero from the windows. Kurisu thinks her peaceful school life is already starting to fall apart. The girls in class begin asking her questions, saying it is their first time talking to her and wondering if Claude is her boyfriend. Kurisu realizes that thanks to him, her classmates are talking to her more, and she wonders if she should even feel happy about this. She thinks the impact of the first day is too perfect as everything around her spins into chaos. In class, Kurisu thinks she is working so hard to clear up the misunderstanding since the new term began. She explains to the girls that it is because of the contract, and she says they are not dating. The problem maker calls her and says he does not have the context books he needs since he suddenly transferred. He asks her for help because he might make a mistake. She agrees, even though she sighs. The girls start teasing Kurisu again. Soon, she and the demon walk to the shopping street while he happily looks around at the beautiful streets of Japan. She thinks it is definitely not an after-school date. She remembers the girls asking if it is a chance for her, and she remembers how they say her reactions are interesting and fun to tease. She blames Makihara and Morioka for putting weird thoughts in her head. As they walk, the demon sees a sweet store and looks excited, but Kurisu pulls him away and reminds him that the bookstore is in the other direction. She decides they must buy the things quickly so they can part ways right away. She helps him purchase school clothes and books at high speed until she feels out of breath and calls it a mission complete. He says they got it done quickly, and she asks why he cannot just use magic. The demon explains that he can do that and even reveals that the uniform he is wearing is made by magic, which shocks her. She wonders why he bothers coming to buy things, and he quietly explains that he wants to spend after-school time with her. Kurisu blushes when he says that, and a faint smile appears on her face. Everyone around them notices, so she panics and runs while saying they completed their tasks and she will go now. He flies after her and asks her to wait because there is one more store they must visit. She is confused and asks if there is really another one. Then they go to a sweet shop, and then a lady hands them a banana chocolate parfait and a banana strawberry parfait. They sit together on a bench, and Kurisu questions him about the treat. He tells her it is a return gift for today because he hears that all women like sweets. She knows he mostly wants to eat them himself because he stares at the desert like a hungry little kid. She thinks this is turning into an after-school date, so she plans to eat fast and end the day. They both taste the crepes and feel amazed. Claude feels the Garden of Eden in his mouth. Kurisu quietly feels it is too good and tries not to admit it. He feels pleased to do something like this with her. She blushes and she wonders if he is saying that spending after-school time with her makes him happy. She worries that he might actually like her. He then explains he means buying food with a classmate, and she feels guilty for misunderstanding and calls herself the impure one. He tells her he only attended Demon World schools and only studied, so youth was far away from him, and he feels pleased today. She notices his big, sincere eyes and admits she understands because she always puts church first. But she also longs for simple things like buying snacks. He gets excited and says they should try youthful activities in school because they will become part of her happiness. She sadly reminds him that she is not allowed to do such things as a sister. Later at church, Julia tells her it is not a big deal because living a happy life is also a duty God gives, as long as it stays healthy. As she prepares her things for tomorrow and finds the crepe wrapper in her bag, she quietly looks forward to the next day. More and more memories begin to fill her school life. The day after the opening ceremony, the school bustles with activity as older students recruit new first years for their clubs. That morning, Claude suddenly suggests they join a club. Kurisu freezes at the word. He explains that club life is the heart of youth and reminds her she's never joined one. Deep down, she admits it's something she secretly wants, but she's too embarrassed to say so. When Claude asks if no club interests her, she awkwardly explains that joining as a second year feels uncomfortable, Everyone already has strong bonds, and she imagines being pitied or whispered about for joining late. Remembering she's also a sister, she panics at the thought of people suggesting shrine visits for luck. Claude listens carefully, finally understanding, and assures her they can forget about clubs if it worries her. She quietly apologizes. Still, as the day goes on, Kurisu can't ignore the sight of excited students enjoying their clubs. She hides behind a tree, watching longingly while Claude explores happily. Then she hears him shout, "Join the Service Activity Club!" Curious and alarmed, she runs over and freezes. There's a life-sized panel of herself smiling politely beside him. She yells, demanding to know why her face is on a giant board. Claude proudly announces that he founded the Service Activity Club and made her the president. When she protests, he explains it's because she didn't want to join an existing club, so he created one for her. Trembling with frustration, she asks why he didn't tell her first. He hands her the club leaflet, which lists volunteering and helping others as its goals, inspired by her dream of becoming an admirable sister. The materials are well made, making it impossible to reject, much to her annoyance. Reluctantly, Chris agrees to give it a try, but scolds him for advertising in such an embarrassing way. Claude proudly replies that 20 students already want to join. Shocked, she sees a crowd of boys gathered, all claiming they want to do good for the world. Touched at first, she begins to welcome them, until Claude suddenly blocks her, declaring he'll personally judge who's worthy. Using magic, he summons a blinding interrogation light that forces people to tell the truth. Under its glow, the boys immediately confess they only joined because Ibarakawa-san is cute. Furious, Claude hurls a popcorn bomb that blows them all away, roaring that such lustful thoughts toward Chrisama are unforgivable. She watches exasperated as his tone darkens into devil mode. He insists that while lust is normal for demons, it's a sin when aimed at her. Stepping close, he tells her she's cute and must be more careful, promising to protect her from anyone who might mislead her. She loses patience and kicks him, shouting that he's the one most likely to mislead others. Someone nearby yells, "They're flirting again." Kurisu turns to see Morioka, who greets them casually and comments on their noisy new club. Chris apologizes, but Morioka asks if they've submitted the club application to the student council. Claude looks confused, asking if that's really required in Japanese schools. Chris sighs in disbelief, wondering what they've gotten into. Morioka waves it off, saying they should just ask the president. Kurisu praises her for being so knowledgeable, only for Morioka to reveal she's a student council member. Kurisu is surprised, while Claude suspiciously mutters that it must be a lie. Offended, Morioka snaps that he's being rude as Kurisu groans, realizing her peaceful school life is gone for good.